I started as a credit analyst in a boutique finance firm. I applied for several roles, and then from there I moved into my first banking job, which was in FSB International Bank, which is now Fidelity Bank. And then I had to go away to have the first child. I went away, had the baby, and then came back. And I think that was when I faced the first major challenge at work. When I came back, my job had been taken over by another colleague.
So you came back from mat leave to no job?
Yes, to no job. My group head said that, look, your job is not available, but you go and start a new desk. Gradually, I started building the book. I did so well that this group head, when he was moved to run a bank as a CEO, I was the first person he gave to headhunt.
No way.
Some people can throw a question to you. You have good or bad bosses. How do you act when you're with a good boss? How do you manage a bad boss? And I tell them, truth be said, I haven't necessarily looked at bosses as good or bad. I've always found something to learn from them.
Welcome to Salt and Light podcast, where we discuss faith, business, and everything else in between. Today, I have a very special guest, my own personal auntie, Carol Oyedeji. She's very successful in her career as a mother, as a wife, and also a Christian woman. So I hope that you enjoy her as much as I've enjoyed her throughout my life. So welcome so much, Auntie, to
Thank you.
Salt and Light podcast. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Yvonne, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So to start off, we'll start with a little icebreaker to try and get to know you more. Okay. So I think the first question is if you could describe yourself in 3 words.
Wow, that's quite an interesting one. 3 words. I'll say I'm balanced.
Balanced.
I would say I'm persistent. When you say the third one, I'm not sure if it's a mix of words, but I'll say I'm probably a moderate extrovert.
Wow. When you say moderate, I say, so can you speak?
Okay, let me explain. I don't think I'm an introvert. I'm not so much into myself and all that. But at the same time, I do try and socialize from time to time and try and just ensure that I'm out there also.
So that's the balance that you speak of.
Absolutely.
Right. I love that. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you could pick a Bible character, what would you pick?
Is it gender specific?
Not at all. Not at all.
There are several actually, and I think that there are 2 that already come to mind, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
So I'll say Mary, Mother Mary, for instance, and that's because of that complete trust in God, right? Just willing to be used by God for everything. So a total reliance on God, regardless of what she faced. And the other character will be the Apostle Peter.
Interesting. I wouldn't have picked Peter for you, but I can't wait to hear it.
Just and it's similar. When I say there are certain areas in which I'll pick them for, and that's because of also that total reliance on Jesus Christ. Recall when he saw Jesus Christ walking on the river, he just jumped in
without thinking,
and just said, "This is God," and I just believe that I am fine as far as God is there. That's why I said
that's
Mary
lovely.
and Peter.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
So, so aside your successful and busy, I know when I say successful career and your faith, what do you do? What other hobbies or activities do you enjoy?
Okay. I read a lot. I love reading.
Okay.
Interestingly, not necessarily factual books. I read a lot of fiction. I could just sit at a corner reading a very good novel, and whenever I'm on holiday, I tend to just pack a lot of books and devour all of them. So I read a lot. I swim.
Okay.
I'm very much into fitness.
Well, so clearly I can see that.
Aerobics and all that. Yes. I do that. I'm involved in 1 or 2 social courses, charity courses. Okay. So I think that's basically it. And then I love to travel.
Yeah. Where would you say is your favorite destination?
Interestingly, very basic London.
No way.
That's because for me it's like home away from home.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm almost as comfortable there as I'm comfortable in the house. But of course I've been to a lot of locations, but whenever I come back to London, I feel very much at home.
Good. Yeah. So home away from home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. So let's get into this session today. This one is very interesting to me, right? And I had said to you earlier how I think I first heard about you at the age of maybe 14.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that young. And it was my mom saying, my parents never, compared. They never wanted me to compare with anybody.
All right.
But, it was always live your life looking at, Jesus, the author and finisher. That's who your eyes should always be on. But just bringing it closer, at the end of the day, Jesus isn't going to be physically holding my hand, right?
Yeah.
My mom did say to me, "Oh, Yvonne, there's this young couple, your dad and I are a bit older to you, but then there's this young couple that I want to introduce you to, right? I want you to get to know them. I want you to be close to them." And it's so weird because we weren't really, how you're close, but my parents didn't let me sleep over or go. They, they kind of shielded and sheltered me as well. But my mom did say, and when my dad was saying, "Oh, Yvonne needs a mentor," that was who my mom was like, "Oh, definitely, she's a Christian woman. She's intelligent, good grades. She's always..."
You are flattering. Come on.
It's my mom. Or maybe we should hold her responsible for this.
All right.
But, she always said, and this is something we're going to speak about, it was, your marriage. My mom always said, "Oh, Yvonne, I will see them at Silverbread," and they were so close, holding hands, giggling. Even when you and your husband, you're always together at home. When you come out, you're still best friends, really into each other.
Yeah.
And my mom always said, I want that for you. I want that kind of marriage for you. The way they are bringing their kids up, I want you to be, see how she's a mom and, not be exactly like her, but you're your own person, but you can obviously learn and take away from her. So I think that's one of the reasons I have you on this show.
Oh, wow.
To kind of share, it was what I saw growing up, and then seeing you, my first job was at your organization, actually. And then, just seeing you really into your work. When I first started joining, I think you just found out that you were pregnant with your last child as well. But I think you worked till the last day. And then I don't even know how many months it was, but I know you were back. I was like, wow. How does she do it all, So for me, I would like to start with, you and your husband are both successful. What you tend to see is in a marriage is competition, right? Even in Christian marriages, it shouldn't be like that. But in your marriage, I never saw that competition. I saw your husband being so proud. I remember there's something Uncle said to me one day. Your auntie didn't get to where she is in one day. And I don't know why he said that. I don't know if I was feeling a certain way. I don't know how he was able to pick that up and say to me that, you're looking at her in this way where she is now. But she was looking for jobs one day. Do you know she worked at a job that she hated?
Yes.
And when he said that to me, I looked at her, I was like, really? You're telling me that the path I'm walking, she was in this, it wasn't just like what you said, perfect,
Yes.
So can you sort of start with your journey? Let's start with your journey to, how you picked your career, and at any point did you sort of pivots from it, or have you, just kind of walk us through that?
Okay, so in terms of career, let me start. I actually have a first degree in chemistry.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So you start asking, why finance today?
Well,
After you started from chemistry. And I didn't just jump into finance. I think at that time, where I got the job availabilities at that time was in the finance industry. This was in the early 90s, where the financial landscape was blossoming. So those were where the jobs were available, not necessarily in manufacturing.
Right.
So I found myself there. I started as a credit analyst in a boutique finance firm.
Oh, wow.
But I got a lot of training there. And just before then, I had met my husband in camp.
NYC. I think I remember the story.
I met my husband in the NYC camp, and we had dated, and somehow we split up.
Okay.
But while I was in this boutique finance firm, I met him again.
In this firm? Or was
Not
he
in this
working?
firm. He was working in a bank, but we ran into each other
Okay.
again. And so we started dating again. But he was the one that sort of encouraged me to move into mainstream banking.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I applied for several roles, and then from there I moved into my first banking job, which was in FSB International Bank, which is now Fidelity Bank.
Fidelity Bank.
Yeah. I started as a relationship manager.
Until you were an RM.
Yes, I was.
Wow.
Yes, I was a relationship manager. So I worked in a department called consumer banking.
Okay.
Very interesting job I was doing then, managing clients, individual clients and small businesses, which was good actually. And I found it quite interesting. I mean, in the course of my job in FSB was when I got married.
Okay.
And quite an interesting one. It didn't really stop me from putting in as much work that I needed to put in. One, because my husband was in the same industry. So he sort of understood what the demands were, the requirements of the role. And I think he just let me be. So we sort of complemented each other. I'll come home, talk about my challenges. He would encourage me. He would talk about his own, and I would encourage him also. So that's how it sort of worked. And then I had to go away to have the first child. That was Wura.
Yes.
Okay. So I went away, had the baby, and then came back. And I think that was when I faced the first major challenge at work. When I came back, my job had been taken over by another colleague.
A man or woman?
A lady. So
okay.
Effectively, I didn't have a job. But what happened?
So you came back from mat leave to no job?
Yes, to no job. But my group head then now said, okay, your role is no longer available.
But you weren't gone for that long.
I was gone for 3 months. But, it's a bit different now where, you have the corporate world a bit more supportive to the female gender. Then it was a bit tough.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I came back, I didn't have a job. But my group head said that, look, your job is not available, but you go and start a new desk. So this was a completely zero portfolio, no clients, no. He just says, grow the balance sheet and do what you can, and then we'll see from there.
Wow.
So it was more like a hint to actually leave the job. But I just said to myself, come on, you definitely can do certain things and make the best of this role. Obviously relying very much on my faith, just
that must have been a very new baby, and that must have been very difficult.
It was a tough period. So what I did was, interestingly, talk to a number of colleagues in the various units. Where you have a portfolio of many clients, there will be some that will be inactive. So many were actually willing to give out their inactive customers. And interestingly, that's how I built the portfolio. And it also helped me develop a lot of, I'll say, network. It helped me build my networking skills, because then I would go around, visit a lot of these customers. I became friendly with them, with their families, and then gradually I started building a book.
Okay.
They started transferring people to work with me because the portfolio was getting quite big. And I did
bigger than even your previous,
from where I moved from.
Wow.
I did so well that this group head, when he was moved to run a bank as a CEO, I was the first person he came to headhunt.
No way.
So he come with him. So he headhunted me, and I moved from FSB then to Citizens Bank.
Okay.
At Citizens Bank, I was group head for commercial banking then, running about 4 teams, and then did some work there, and then second baby.
Yeah. I hope he was more understanding this time around.
Oh, yeah. And then second baby. And then I went away and had my second child. But while I was there also, it was quite an interesting one also, because I was also now looking after companies that were much larger than what I was doing in FSB.
Okay.
And then an international bank came to town. And this is Standard Chartered Bank.
Okay.
And I think they were headhunting for different roles. So I was approached, interestingly, to come and look after something I had never done, called wealth management. But I think they were actually just looking for capability, not necessarily expertise. Yeah. So what they did was talk to a number of us. And interestingly, I think that was one of the fastest jobs I got.
Did you write an exam for that?
I did. I did.
Yeah.
I think at the stage they came, no matter how senior you were in the industry, then you had to write a test.
Okay.
So we all did write a test. I wrote a test and did a couple of interviews up to the very senior management, and then they brought me in.
Okay.
I was the pioneer head of wealth management then.
Wow.
In Standard Chartered.
Okay.
And then that's how, I started growing my career. So while I had spent an odd, I think 12, 11 years in FSB, predominantly in FSB and Citizens Bank, Standard Chartered was the bulk of my career, actually. Because there I moved in there, I spent about 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
So I started in wealth management, and there was so much training there. And so they would take me to various countries just for various exposures. And they let me work in very many departments. So I had a very broad experience. So I worked in wealth management. I worked in what you call retail distribution, shared distribution, taking care of branches, relationship managers, sales, other channels of distribution outside branches, ATMs, contact center. Okay. And then in the middle of that, started looking after commercial banking also. So it was quite a good experience working for that length of time with the organization. And the exposure was so good that outside the training, they used to take me for short-term attachments in various countries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I did a short-term attachment in Singapore. I did in India. I did in Jersey, Channel Islands. I did in the
Dubai
UAE.
too.
Yes,
Yes, I
UAE,
remember,
Dubai.
yeah.
I did in UAE. So I did in quite a number of countries, and all that really added to my experience. And then gradually, I think I, started growing through the career ladder. I must say it wasn't necessarily that smooth the way I'm saying it is. It wasn't so. It wasn't
I
so
can imagine the
smooth.
challenges in between.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes without saying that in a corporate environment, you would actually meet all kinds of characters. And it just depends on how you manage yourself. What I keep saying to people is that, yes, this is a journey. Ultimately, at the end, we all live there because number one, the bank's not my father's bank.
Right. It's not your father's business.
Yes,
like
it's not my father's business. So I won't be there permanently.
Yes.
And everything in life is temporary.
Right.
But just know that you put the objectives of the organization first and make sure in whatever differences you have, differences or opinions with anybody, you all are working together to ensure that is the organization that benefits at the end.
Right.
So that, teamwork, collaboration, so that helps. You would always have differences of opinions of how to do your work. You would always have. However, like I say, it's the organizational objectives that should always be prioritized over and above any individual objectives because that is very critical. And I think Standard Chartered had such a good culture. The cultures revolved a lot around ethics,
Okay.
credibility, integrity, and then courage. You had to be really brave, and you had to ensure that you were willing to take some risks without compromising on certain values. So all those were important. I think it did a lot in sort of shaping the kind of person I ended up being in my career.
In your career.
Yeah, so that helped quite a bit. And then I rose to now start looking after what you call retail distribution and business banking.
Okay.
So I was looking after that for the Africa and Middle East region.
Okay.
I was covering about 14 countries across Africa and Middle East.
Sorry, at what point of this was your career?
This, what do you mean at what point?
How old were your kids in life?
Okay, that's my family. Okay,
well, let's finish this first.
I haven't said much about my family.
I just wanted to know, because you were already,
but
traveling, managing 14
at that
countries.
time, there were ways in which I was managing it, and that's
we'll get to that. Let's finish
that's
this
a different story entirely. So my children at that stage, let me see if I can remember how old my oldest was. My oldest would have been just below 20. I think when I was doing that job, and my youngest, I had my youngest. My youngest would have been around 7, 8.
That was the extra gift from God to you. Yes,
would have been around 7, 8 when I was doing that job.
Okay.
So yes, like you say, it involved a lot of traveling, and ultimately to do the job, it would have required that I had to relocate from Nigeria, which was a bit of a challenge for me. My husband was working here. Okay, my children had started going to school abroad then, but I had more of my children still here. And it would have been a difficult one for us to combine if I had to relocate at that stage. I must say that before then, I was also doing a job that required me to be traveling a lot because I was head of business banking for Africa. Okay. I would have needed that I actually lived in Nairobi in Kenya.
Wow. That's away from your family.
Away from my family. But the organization was quite understanding. So while I was traveling, I could do the job from Lagos. Okay. So this one too, I could do the job from Lagos. However, the breadth of this one made it extremely difficult for me to actually maintain one location here when all my other colleagues were actually seated out of Dubai. Oh. So it was only a question of time before I would have had to relocate to Dubai. So at that time, obviously, I ran into a couple of headhunters. And it was quite an interesting one. There was an interesting role in my current institution, EcoBank, that they were looking to fill on the board of EcoBank Nigeria. Okay. It required me to come and look after their consumer banking business as an executive director. Okay. But it was in Lagos.
Wow, perfect. Right?
Perfect for me.
Perfect.
So obviously that was one of the reasons I had to leave Standard Chartered at that time. It's not like I wanted to leave because I really loved the organization.
Yes.
But
You're already
obviously,
there for 15 years.
for 15 years.
Yes.
But sometimes in life, you have to understand what you prioritize. You have to, understand what gives your life a deeper sense of purpose. For me, family was very important then. And I wasn't ready to compromise on that geographic mobility to disrupt the family at that time. So I moved to EcoBank to join the board. And I was looking after the consumer banking business then.
Okay.
Shortly after, about 1 or 2 years after, I now started looking after commercial banking as executive director of commercial banking.
Okay.
And that one worked very well. And then about 5 years after, I was made the deputy managing director of the bank.
Congratulations.
Yes. And now looking after the corporate banking business.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
So today, I actually sit on the board of EcoBank Nigeria as deputy managing director.
Okay.
I have direct oversight on the corporate banking business.
Okay.
But I'm now doing a dual role because I'm now acting group executive for EcoBank Transnational Incorporated, looking after commercial banking for the 33 countries that we do business in.
And how'd you do it all?
Well, it's God.
How do you and still have time to, exercise and take care of yourself?
I think it's like I say, balance is very important. So, and then having a routine around how you manage things. And I think the fact that I have worked quite a bit. I've been in financial services for slightly over 30 years. So I think you learn bits from different places as to how to manage different aspects of your role or your job. And then working with people. You can't underestimate the power of good talent and your ability to identify good people who can support you, who have your interests at heart, who understand the agenda they are looking to deliver on. Don't ever compromise on that. So sometimes people would say they don't want to hire staff that are more intelligent than them. I see it the other way.
The other way around.
I see the other way around. Get people who are stronger than you.
Exactly.
Even you learn from them and all that, and you would see that it makes your life easier. So that has definitely worked for me. So that's what I'm doing now.
Okay.
It's helping. It's a very large job, I must say. It's a very busy job, but interestingly, I think I still find time to enjoy myself.
Yes.
To enjoy myself. So I guess that's a summary of my career.
I think it's so inspiring, just basically hearing it. And the way you say it, it sounds like, it was smooth.
Wow.
There's no, can you sort of share when the turbulence came and how you overcame? I know, right? How you sort of overcame maybe in maybe 2 stories of that.
Okay, I think I've shared one. Yes. Shared one when the first one is
when you came back from maternity leave.
Yes, and I didn't have a job.
That is enough for someone to be like, you know what? I'm either going to sit at home,
yes,
or quit. But you still, the fact that you still continued and then even became better and more sought out, and that's something I sort of want you to highlight. It's one thing to say head, but people were looking for you because you had the value and skills they needed. Yeah. So sort of also, aside the challenges, maybe the next question would be, how did you upskill yourself and be that woman that people wanted? So,
to be honest, I think that you can learn from whatever you do, regardless of where you're posted to, and I'll give you another experience that I had. So that first one was one. Okay. And like I said, I learned from it in terms of my networking skills, ability to engage customers, being friends with them, not just from the work environment, but even from their families, because till today, some of those relationships, I've actually been able to bring them into my new bank. Oh, wow. Yeah, because they've been with me for a while. Yes. So those friendships are built over the years. So that helped quite a bit. Then the second one is around even one of my roles in Standard Chartered, right? So I was looking after the consumer banking business for West Africa at the stage. And then there were issues that came up around, and I probably won't, talk about some of the internal, challenges we had in the office then. But it required that I needed to step away from the role. It wasn't something I was ready for at that stage, but I was just moved away from the role abruptly. And as you would expect, it came as a shock. Yeah. And I was moved into a role that was just created called business banking for Africa. And what had happened was that the businesses were being dissected, and so there was a smaller portfolio built up, and then we had to do business banking in Africa. So we were now trying to extract portfolios from different markets. So like starting a new business again, similar to what
after you had grown.
Okay, yes. So that was what I was doing, business banking for Africa, but not after, or rather say, I'll put it like this: after just let's say about 15 months. The organization decided to do another restructuring.
Okay.
And they're going to eliminate that role.
Which one?
The business banking role.
The one you were in?
Yes. So when I say sometimes that you just have to put your trust absolutely in God, right? And just, leave everything as it is. Do your best, leave the rest to God. I believe very much in that mantra. So I just said to myself, I've done my best. I've learned from my different jobs. I leave everything to God. And I just trusted God totally. So they eliminated that role, restructured the whole, businesses again. And then there was no longer like an independent Africa business. It was now subsumed into what you call Africa and Middle East.
Okay.
And then so very senior job roles were created. And these very senior job roles, I was probably qualified for about 2 of them.
Okay.
And when I say qualified, it was there was a products role, then there was one for retail distribution and business banking, for about 3 roles actually. And when I say qualified, I would say about 8 other people were equally as qualified.
Yeah, because it's more because it's Africa, Middle East.
Exactly.
Everyone vying for maybe 10 roles.
Exactly. So what happened was that we were now all told, compete for the roles, interview for the roles. And when I say 8, maybe I'm probably not saying the real story, probably more than 8, because we had people from different countries, different nationals competing for the roles, and we were all told to apply. So I just picked a role, and this was a retail distribution and business banking. I just picked that role, and because I knew that role very well. That role involved managing branches, all the channels of distribution, ATMs, contact center, and then business banking. These are small businesses, right?
Across
Africa and Middle East. But I had just done Africa. I had done West Africa, I'd done Africa. But a lot of those other guys were very, very competent. Many had looked after large businesses in India, in Pakistan, and I was competing against those people. But when I say that sometimes when God moves you somewhere, there's a reason. Recall I had been moved abruptly from West Africa consumer to look after business banking, right?
A smaller portfolio.
The role that I was competing for required somebody with business banking experience.
Wow.
I was the only one that had it.
No way.
I was the only one that had it.
God is so intentional.
When I say God is deliberate,
no way.
I was the only one.
And then at that point, you were feeling like bad, like, why are you taking me from what I've been doing
to something
brand new?
Exactly. And then he created this.
I'm getting goosebumps.
And so without, so much force, the announcement was made in the organization. Number 1, I was black. I was female in the midst of an all-male management team. The entire bank, almost couldn't believe
People couldn't believe it. Like, what did she do?
What?
Who does she know?
It was such a big business, and
so it was a big portfolio you were keeping?
Massive portfolio. Wow. Massive portfolio. And then I had such a good boss. Well, he's late now.
He's late now.
He was an Indian, and he became one of my best mentors in the bank then. Wow. Best mentors, because he took me through the rudiments of, the role.
Wow, that must have been really challenging, even getting that kind of role.
Oh, yeah.
And just feeling like...
And he was so understanding. Adequate? He was the one that said, okay, because I explained to him that this job is fantastic, it's good, but leaving my family at this time would have been tough. He said, don't worry, Carol. You do it from Nigeria. We can work together. And this was before COVID.
Wow. How old was your last child?
7.
7.
About 7.
Okay.
So we worked very well together. But like I said, the demands of the role at that time, right, it became so much. You would have needed that I had to move to Dubai.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave my family there.
So what qualities would you say helped you even get to this role in the first place? Like, what sort of inner strengths?
Like I said, there was a question you asked me before around describing myself with 3 words, and I said persistent. Okay. And I said persistent because when I start working towards something, I continue, really work hard. And I try not to just compromise on the amount of work that I, need to do to get to a space. So I try and really prepare hard for it. I read all kinds of materials. I really learn. So I continue learning as much as possible, right? With whatever opportunity I have, I just try and learn from that. So some people can throw a question to you. You have good or bad bosses. How do you act when you're with a good boss? How do you manage a bad boss? And I tell them, truth be said, I haven't necessarily looked at bosses as good or bad. I've always found something to learn from them. Some can be more challenging than the other.
Of course.
You understand? But there's always something to learn. And that's the attitude you should always have. And one thing about bosses, once you understand what they require and ensure you deliver for them, you will work better with them. Yeah.
Yes. So sort of moving away, not too far away from your career, and then moving into, there was something you said earlier about teamwork.
Yeah.
Right? I would like to bring that into like your marriage.
All right.
So you're very successful, but your husband was also equally successful. How did you ensure that there wasn't competition? You know how it is normally in my wife is doing, I want to do my husband.
Yeah.
Was there any competition at all?
No.
And how did you sort of support each other and just know that, we're in this together, we're a team, and let's work together, collaborate together.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're friends first. I think we're friends first. That's just the basic thing.
Okay.
And I think we complement each other. That's why there's probably no competition at all. We really complement each other. Like I said, we met where we're doing NYSC in camp.
Okay.
And then we started dating. And then somehow, I think maybe career aspirations, ambition caused us to go our separate ways.
Okay.
He wanted to do his ICANN exams.
Okay.
He wanted to be an accountant at that stage.
Interesting.
I was doing an MBA.
Okay.
And I think maybe we were quite busy with what we were doing.
So you were both very focused.
Yes.
Yes.
In terms of, wanting to advance our careers and all that. So we were. So he had finished his ICANN, I had finished my MBA. We started working again. Interestingly, we're dating two different people when we met again.
And then you met and you're like, you know what? We're soulmates. Let's go. Let's not deceive anyone else.
So somehow we came back. We came back together. We started dating, and then we got married in 1997.
Okay.
So we've been married for slightly over 26 years.
26 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was in a bank then. I was in another bank.
Okay.
And he was in a separate department from my department. But obviously, because we're working in financial services together, it helps that a lot of conversations around what is happening in the financial services space was really part of the lingo at home. But there are firewalls because we knew we were working in, we were working with the competition. Right. So we wouldn't discuss any clients. We had mutual clients. We never talk about them.
So you had boundaries?
Oh, yes, we did. Okay. We had boundaries because we understood very much about data protection and the importance of ensuring we don't compromise on any things that our organizations insisted had to be kept within the walls of the organization. So we tried as much as possible to do that. And then children started coming. Okay. One thing I must say is that both families, it's not just us getting married together. I think both our families also get on very well together.
Okay.
His mother is lovely, and I'm not saying that because I'm being interviewed here. Right. I say that because I've always, when she came into the scene, I saw myself as having two mothers, and I didn't have any friction with her. If anything, she sort of shielded me from the larger family. Right. Sort of shielded me from the larger family. And because of that, I've always sort of really warmed up to her. And I'll give you an example. When I had my first child, she was actually the first on the scene before my mother came. Wow, okay. And all that. By the time I was actually discharged from the hospital, she actually gave me my first bath. She bathed me. And then started teaching me how to take care of the child. And then my mother subsequently came. My mother was working then. So my mother subsequently came. So we've always been quite close. So for me, it was now became a balancing act, right? So I was working, I was married, I was having children. But what really helped me then was the fact that I saw her, my mom, my husband as pillars of support. So it wasn't just me taking care of the children. Whenever I was traveling, if my mom wasn't around, my mother-in-law was in the house.
Okay.
So my children today actually saw themselves as being brought up with 3 mothers.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Whenever I needed to sometimes go somewhere, I'll take my children and dump them either in my mother's house or my mother-in-law's house. So it was like that. So that's how, the family started growing. Like I said, we're very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's my husband and I. And I think it's by virtue of the fact that I think we have similarities, quite a number of similarities in our ways, in our style. He's more of an extrovert than I am, like I said, because he has a whole lot of friends. They've become my friends anyway, because they become friends of the family, and that's because of the way he is. I'm sure you've met him before. He's very boisterous. He's
and very welcoming as well.
Very welcoming.
Yes.
And that's also by virtue of the environment he grew up in. So my mother-in-law, for instance, would entertain anybody that comes to her house. Anybody that comes would eat. Anybody. So that's the environment in which he brought up in. In my own family was slightly different. We were a bit more chilled, but after entering that kind of environment, so I too now started enjoying that sort of community or company. So it also sort of helped a lot in the marriage. As in terms of faith and religion, interestingly, he's Pentecostal Christian. Okay. I'm Catholic Christian.
Wow, how did you?
But I think that once you're a Christian first. Right. Once you're a Christian, the beliefs are not different. So we say our prayers together, and we do a lot of things together. So
there's no. You're still Catholic, and he's still Pentecostal.
Catholic. He's still Pentecostal. When the children were growing up, I still would go for my mass and then go to because one thing about the Catholic Church is that you have masses at any time, or you can always attend the mass, and then I will go also with the family to his church. Okay. So it's worked.
So that's sort of how you kept the family together.
Absolutely, right, absolutely. Okay. So we all pray together. We all do everything, religious-wise together, because whether we like it or not, it's the same God. The same God.
Exactly.
We say our prayers similarly. We read the Bible together. Yes. So, our faith has worked like that. Yes, there might be differences in the way we carry out some of our Christian activities. In the Catholic Church, for instance, we sometimes require prayer or request prayers from saints and angels, and there are certain aspects of the religions that are quite different. But I think we respect each other and know ultimately that it's
the same God.
Yes. Right. And deep understanding of each other. So when a couple has decided that they want to spend their lives together, they should try as much as possible to, really be understanding of each other. However, there will be extreme circumstances. One in which you find out that you're really incompatible, right? I would say prayer too is absolutely key. Continue praying. But if, push really comes to shove, I don't expect you to stay in a union where you are finding yourself almost emotionally imbalanced, where it's taking a toll on your health, where you might find yourself actually in danger, either from physical, verbal assault. So I would expect that you always put, your health first and yourself first under those sort of circumstances. But you should try as much as possible first, and that shouldn't always be an easy, option to take.
Right.
That's the way I'll put it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people talk about finances in marriage. How have you been able to balance it, you and your husband? And what's your view on my money, your money, and our money? They usually say the woman's money is her money, then the man's money is our money. So how have you been able to balance
I don't see it as that. I think, number one, I think you just need to both establish trust with each other. Okay. Real deep trust, particularly when it comes to finances. We have a joint purse. Okay. We have a joint purse. A lot of our investments are together. Okay. We do it in our names. or
Yeah, so not a Mr. and Mrs.
no, not a Mr. and Mrs. As the children started becoming adults, we've actually brought in the children into some of these things, and that's because I think at the very start we're able to establish that level of trust together. That doesn't mean that we don't have separate accounts. And I'll give you an example. Obviously, my salary is not paid into a joint account. His salary won't be paid into a joint account or whatever he does. Right. So, I mean, there are day-to-day routine spends that we will do on our own. But however, when we need to do some massive investments together, we have joint accounts where we put savings, where we do things. So we do quite a lot together when it comes to finances.
Okay. Yeah. What would you say, because you definitely got married to a very good man, and you're a very good woman yourself. So what was important? Do you have the top 3 things you're looking at when you're looking for a spouse?
You know what I normally tell my daughters today? I tell them that at the age of 17, I had started praying for a good husband. I said,
you were a bookie, weren't you?
I was, but at the age of 17, I was in uni then.
Okay.
I wasn't looking to get married that early.
Yes.
But maybe something, just came to me, minuted to me my spirit and said, look, put this as one of your prayers. Obviously, I didn't get married until I was 26. This is almost 9 years after.
Right.
But
you already
from there, I had just started praying for a good husband at the age of 17.
Wow.
And it was one of my prayer points. And yes, I was in 1 or 2 relationships before I got married.
Of course.
But, and I wasn't necessarily in a relationship because of marriage. Sometimes it was just friendship, and then it would, develop into dating and all that. But I just used to tell God that, just give me a good man.
That's the word, a good man.
Yeah, a good man. Person, yes, a good person. I wasn't going to say I wanted a tall, handsome, or I just
tall,
wanted
dark and handsome.
No. I just wanted a good man. And so I used to
with ambition.
I didn't define like that.
See me define.
I didn't define like that. I just said I want God to just bless me with a good husband. That was, and I used to pray. And that was all.
That's so interesting.
No.
What would you say is the Bible scripture that grounds you? When challenges come through, like what's that scripture that you say, this is what really holds you?
Be still and know that I am God.
Wow. That's amazing. So you just hear that and you're good.
Whenever I'm in any rough, situation or I'm battling any challenges, I just, remember that psalm. Be still and know that I am God.
When would you say Jesus became really real? Obviously you grew up in a Christian home. Your mom, I think, was a teacher, a professor, so she was really strict as well. But when would you say, what, you are really my savior, you're really my person? Mm-hmm. When was that defining moment?
I've had several. But I think my faith actually deepened due to, I think, a slight challenge I had when I was about, first 15 years old and then later. But let me start with the one at 15 years old. I used to do extremely well in school.
Okay.
Top class, get the right scores. I did extremely well in my work, distinctions all over. So I was doing very well. So I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
My older brother had done medicine too, and I felt it was just going to be a walkover for me. So I did JAMB and all that. And then I didn't do well in JAMB. And then all the people that I was similarly more intelligent than, they all got into medicine. Oh. And that was the first shock in my life. That how could I, who used to do so well in school and all that. But, my mom introduced me to a few prayers in the Catholic Church that we do a few novenas.
Okay.
Novenas are like 9-day prayers that you say to God when you're expecting something. So I'll give you the history of a novena. I started just before Pentecost, before the Holy Spirit descended on Mary and the apostles. Mm-hmm. And then the apostles locked themselves up in the upper room. And then for 9 days, they were praying. And then after the 9th day, the Holy Spirit came and descended on them. So after that, in the Catholic Church, we do what you call a novena for 9 days. Okay. So you can sometimes pick a saint who typically helps in different matters. And for 9 days, you're seeking their help to pray to Jesus Christ for you. You know, Jesus Christ is the mediator and is, you know, chief intercessor for everyone.
Right.
So that within this 9 days, you know, or not necessarily within 9 days, but ultimately this would actually come to pass. And the reason why we do that is not that you can't necessarily pray directly to God, but, you know, sometimes even in this life, you always ask people to pray for you and all that. So it's in the spirit of that. So she introduced me to a few prayers, and there was one she introduced me, which was one of the apostles called Saint Jude Thaddeus.
Okay.
He's typically what you known as a forgotten saint because of the story around Judas Iscariot.
Right.
So because of Judas Iscariot,
The name.
yes,
By association.
yeah, the name by association. So people don't want to hear about Jude. So in fact, he's known as Thaddeus.
Okay.
So she introduced me to, and I started saying that novena. Like, just count me down. And in my petition wasn't necessarily to get in for medicine again, because I knew I wasn't going to go back for medicine. Even though she felt, you're so intelligent, do JAMB again. I wasn't going to do JAMB again. I wasn't going to do that. No, I actually entered for chemistry.
Okay.
But all I was asking for then was peace. And since then, I think my life has really...
That's where the peace be still comes in. Okay. Can you share practical ways where you incorporate your faith to your everyday life?
For me, I think the routine that I sort of built around my daily life seems to help in that regard. So I probably start my day on the average about 4:45 in the morning. And once I wake up, I spend like an hour in prayer and meditation.
Okay.
And then obviously I now go on to the gym. I have a mini gym in the house.
Okay.
So spend about 45 minutes. And I say 45 minutes because if I spend 30 minutes, I go for mass in the morning. But if I spend 45 minutes and I'm not able to go to church that day, I probably might go to mass maybe in the afternoon, or if my time is too busy, I may do online mass, but I try to do mass every day. But I don't necessarily separate faith from my daily routine. I try and sort of leave it in everything I do. So whether I'm in the office or with friends or whatever, it's part of me.
It's part of who you are.
Yeah, it's part of me. It's part of my life. So, and you can tell if you are quite close to me, even in the office environment, for instance, there are certain things, I would never compromise on because of my faith. There are certain situations I've been faced with that I would never compromise on. And once people sort of identify you as that sort of individual, they won't even try and test you. So somehow, I don't think I separate faith totally from how I live my life. Right. It is part of my life.
It is who you are, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything you would like to say to any man or woman who is trying to build their career and family life and just their faith, And I think the word is compromise. And how do they ensure that they still stay, hold their faith and are successful as well? Is there any word you would like to share with them?
I don't think it's just one word that I would say. I don't think it's just one word. But, the way I live my life is trust, absolute trust in God. That regardless of whatever circumstances I face, right, as far as I have absolute trust in God, it will come out well. It will come out well. And why I say that is because I had told you before, there's no life that's perfect.
Right.
There's nobody that won't face challenges. There are challenges in life, but like everything in life, everything has a beginning, everything has an end. And that as far as you trust absolutely in God and have faith, I believe it will always end in praise. So that's just what I'd like to
I like that.
address.
It would always end in praise. Yes. So thank you so much, Auntie, for coming and sharing your nuggets and just your life with us. We truly appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To our audience today, I hope you found that truly inspiring. Make sure to like this video, share this with someone who needs to hear, and also subscribe. Thank you for listening to Salt and Light Podcast.